And welcome to Roll of 24, the week of 12 through 18 January 2026. And welcome everyone to the Roll of 21 for the week of 12 to 18 January 2026. This week, again, it's a very eclectic array of different images, and one of the reasons why I call this John's Eclectic Photo Storytime Adventure is just the word itself, eclectic, meaning nothing one specific. I don't have one specific genre. I'm not a landscape photographer. I'm not a bird photographer. I am just a little bit of everything photographer, and I'm trying to, like they say, jack of all trades, master of none, but I enjoy doing what I'm doing. In this week's episode, there's going to be pictures of some pets, some field pictures taking with the focus of leading lines. There's going to be some macro or close-up photography, some landscape, drone footage, pictures of the lovely bride, dog park, playing with sky replacement inside of Photoshop, and ending with 6 space photos taken with the C-Star 50S out of my own backyard. So in this image here, I'm trying to be low to the ground and trying to get the leading lines. And so you have the 2 black light poles, but then you have the 3 center poles where you can only see 2. And I really wish I'd deleted off that pole that's red and white standing by itself, because it kind of distracts from the leading line aspect in this image. So on my drive back from the Carl Levins Park, where I just took that previous leading line image, I saw the smoke clouds coming from the north, and so I pulled over and found this Fort Hood, Texas. This is part of the east side of the range, and there's no impact area here, so come to find out later on that this was a controlled burn. So here's Charlie having a little nibble on the tripod. I've got the Canon set up down there, and this picture was taken with my iPhone 13, so this was before I traded it out later for a 17. And the Canon R5 is set up down there to do the leading line picture that we will do shortly. So here's an image again of Charlie, a close-up. Once again, this is done with my Canon R5. So this was right before setup and right after Charlie finished chewing on my tripod, and before we started the walk around. I had everything set up, and I was on interval timer, and Charlie's sitting there in front of the lens, and it took its picture for him. And once again, this is the final leading line submission. I got Charlie on the left side of the 3 white poles. I'm standing still on the right-hand side on the sidewalk, and the ditch in front. I just really liked how this turned out, being low to the ground, and the color in the trees. It was just a really ideal shot. This could have been a standalone. I could have taken myself out and just used this as a landscape image, in my opinion. The next 3 images are macro. I used a Canon RF 100 macro, and this was probably about 8 inches in front of the lens. And I took these series of pictures, and then I played around inside of Photoshop to play with the sky replacement tool, which I don't use very often. So I had to go find some prior photos which I thought were some interesting skies I'd taken over the last year, and go through and save those as JPEGs and then go in and do that. Pretty interesting. So this was used with the iPhone 13. This was just a test shot to see how the image would look, and I'm probably about 6-7 inches away from the image and the little person there, and that is a little mini M&M that I took forever to glue onto the person's hand. So I use the Canon R5 here, and I use the internal focus stacking program. So I had it set for 100 pictures, only ended up using anywhere from 40 to 50. So I was taking pictures, macro pictures, and then I went into Photoshop and did some sky replacement. This is a different rock than the last one, I think. But once again, I had one of my little mini people. They're 1/72s, so they're probably about 3/4 of an inch tall. And this is an actual sky that I took out near Stillhouse Lake. No, this was over my house last year when a storm was rolling in. So while this little person's missing the mini M&M glued to their hand, so what I was trying to do is work on complementary colors. So I had the orange rock, so I found a photo that had feathers in it and used the blue section so I get the complementary colors of blue and orange. These next two photos are of my lovely bride. We've been married for 38 years plus, and I had just purchased the iPhone 17 Pro Max with 1 terabit of information. Anyways, we after I made the purchase, we walked across the street to a restaurant, and of course, you get a new phone, you gotta take a picture or two. And as just mentioned, this is my lovely bride of 38 plus years, and we were sitting down in the restaurant. Now, I did use that new feature inside of Lightroom for people removal, because both the bench on her left shoulder and the right shoulder had people sitting there, and I thought it did a really good job. And once again, this is out of the iPhone 17, not in the Pro mode. And here's the second of two pictures of the lovely bride that I took with my new iPhone 17 Pro Max. Once again, I'm not endorsed by anybody, so it's just the phone that I wanted to purchase. I was using the iPhone 13 for the last several years. And here again, I was using the people removal, and because this picture is cropped in some, but on the left side, right side of the screen, there were some people in that bench, and so I used the people removal tool, and it looks like it did a good job. This next image is of my son's cat, Fernando. When we went down and visited him down in Austin, out of his backyard, I had to go look around and found him inside the bushes, relaxing in the sunbeams. So this is before I went to go buy my new iPhone. So this is the last picture that I took with my iPhone 13 Pro Max from several years ago, old. But I found my son's cat laying in the sunbeams in the backyard, and he's definitely been eating good. The next three images are out at a local dog park here in Killeen, Texas. And outside of the fence, talked to this man with a horse. It looks like a horse. And he says that even though this is still a puppy, it's not even a year old yet. He walks it outside of the dog park because we don't have a spot for extreme dogs. And then there's a couple pictures of Charlie. So as I mentioned, this person was walking their dog outside of the small dog section of the local dog park here in Killeen, and he eventually came over towards me, and I was talking to him. The dog's only like 10 or 11 months old. You can see how huge it is because he himself is like 5'9", 5'10", and there is no doggy area for him to play in. And so while out there at the doggy park, took some pictures of Charlie. He is part blue heeler and part unknown. And I had the Canon R6 with me that day to practice taking pictures. And so I had the 135. And I don't play with that enough, so I needed to take it out. So here's one of two images of Charlie. And here's the second image. I caught him from behind, but I just loved how I was able to capture at least three, maybe all four paws up in the air. And I think I probably shot maybe 500 pictures just to get maybe 2 or 3 where his paws were up in the air. I was practicing for the following week to go out to Stillhouse Lake to do some drone photography. And of course, I got a new iPhone 17, so I had to download everything onto that or make sure it all worked. Got all the cables hooked up. So the first picture is me sitting at my desk. At least I got the camera to work. And then there's a picture from above the house. So 2 years ago, my older son, through his workplace, somebody was selling the DJI Mini 2. It's a 249 gram recreational aircraft, so you just need the minimal licensing to fly it for recreational purposes. And I had been having problems with it for ever since I got it. And I think now, because once I plugged it into the 17, I didn't have any of the calibration errors, anything, and a new cable. So it could have been a cable issue, could have been a phone issue, not sure. But here is a picture of me sitting in my office. I was so elated after an hour of trying to get all the batteries charged back up. Got the camera to work, so I snapped a picture of myself. And then the next picture is I took it out to the sidewalk and took the drone up above the house. And if you look in the upper right-hand quadrant, you can actually see Charlie running along on the outside part of the pool. And these last 7 pictures are of space, either of a galaxy or a nebula. And I actually took these from my own backyard. I've got a semi-dark spot, keep the sea star down low to the ground, and block off through the fence the light beams coming in from the street light and the neighbors. And I'm in what's called a Bortle 7 area, so it's not very dark, a lot of light pollution. And other than I stacked all these images inside of the sea star, and then I denoised them inside of the sea star, and then brought them into Lightroom and just did a couple, darken the exposure, increase the contrast, increase the clarity just a little bit. So not a whole lot of edits really went in to each one of these images. And I have found with the latest updates inside of the C Star, at least the 50S, that the program has been very user-friendly versus some of the Astro, where you use your camera or telescopes and then combine all that stuff later on together. For a backyard photographer getting into Astro, it's a very friendly system. All the cameras mentioned and the equipment mentioned, there's no sponsorship in here. This is all the tools that I use every day to do my photography. And this is NGC 891, the Silver Sliver Galaxy, also known as Caldwell 23. It is an edge-on, unbarreled spiral galaxy about 30 million light years away in the constellation Andromeda. Next, we have NGC 2175, known as the Monkey Head Nebula. It's an open cluster in the Orion constellation. It was discovered before 1654. NGC 2175 is at a distance of about 6,350 light years away from Earth. In this image, within the black circle are what look to be 2 tadpoles. Thus, IC 410 is known as the Tadpole Nebula. It is a faint emission nebula in a star-forming region located approximately 10,000 to 12,000 light years away. It surrounds the young open cluster NGC 1893, which I need to figure out and capture in the future, whose intense radiation and stellar winds sculpt the nebula's characteristic tadpole's dense 10 light-year-long pillars of gas and image. Here is M78, commonly known as Casper the Friendly Ghost Nebula. It is a reflection nebula in the constellation Orion. It is the brightest diffuse reflection nebula in a group, all part of the Orion B molecular cloud complex. located approximately 1,350 light years away from Earth. Here's an image I always wanted to see, let alone capture since I was young. This is the Andromeda Galaxy. It is a barrel-shaped galaxy and is the nearest major galaxy to the Milky Way. It was originally named the Andromeda Nebula and is cataloged as Messier 31. Andromeda is more than 2.5 million light years from Earth. The galaxy's name stems from the area of Earth's sky in which it appears, the constellation Andromeda, which itself is named after the princess who was the wife of Perseus in Greek mythology. An amazing capture with such a system as the Seastar 50S in my own backyard is the Flame Nebula. It is designated as NGC 2040. It is an emission nebula in the constellation Orion. It is about 1,350 light years away. At that distance, the Flame Nebula lies within the Orion B cloud of the larger Orion Molecular Cloud Complex, as mentioned earlier. Our final nighttime frame is of M1, the Crab Nebula. It is a supernova remnant and a pulsar wind nebula in the constellation Taurus. The common name comes from a drawing of somewhat resembled a crab with arms. It corresponds with a bright supernova actually observed here on Earth back in 1054 CE by the Mayans, Japanese, and Arab stargazers. This supernova was also recorded by the Chinese astronomers as a guest star. The nebula was the first astronomical object identified that corresponds with a historically observed supernova explosion. The nebula lies in the Perseus arm of the Milky Way galaxy at a distance of about 6,500 light years from Earth. It has a diameter of 11 light years. And just as you saw inside of there, the Flame Nebula, and I just couldn't believe how clear and concise the program did on cleaning it up, and I loved it so much. I do print off all of my images throughout the week as 5x7s so that I can use those as future storybooks. But anything else I just love in photography, I've spent all the money on the cameras, the lenses, the time, the effort, all the work that I do, and instead of just leaving it stored inside of my computer, I at least print off 5x7s, 8x10s, and in this case, I did print off the Flame Nebula, and I'm too close because it is an 11x17. I just love the Horsehead Nebula down here in the bottom, which is all part of this cluster. Anyways, so I do like to print the stuff off, and I do use a Canon Image Pro 1000, and I think maybe I use maybe 3 or 4 milliliters of ink for each one of the different colors. So while the ink's a little expensive, the ink goes a long way. And thank you again for watching this episode. This is my second episode of Roll of 24 for the week of 12 through 18 January 2026. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting that subscribe button and that like button. Thank you very much.